All right, guys, welcome. So we've got a lot to talk about today. Again, this is being recorded, but today, live, we have best-selling author Jared Tendler. He wrote The Mental Game of Poker. And just a quick intro, because again, we've got Jared for 30 minutes, so we don't want to waste any time. We want to get right straight into some content. But before I met Jared, I pretty much called myself an average grinder. I was making pretty darn good money playing poker, but as soon as I met him, I knew there was something that was going to drastically change my life. And boy, did he ever, because after I worked with him, I reached levels that I never thought I would reach before. Not just in my professional life, but also in my social life, with friends, with family, with all sorts of things like that. He taught me so many great lessons that I applied not only to my poker days, it was a business, but I also was able to apply it to my professional life now. I am an entrepreneur, just like many of you are here. But he taught me so much about myself that I never even knew. And so I'm always grateful to him and thankful for him. So I thought that I would share him as a resource with all of you guys, because at the end of the day, we're all entrepreneurs trying to accomplish the same thing. We all want a great deal of success, but a lot of times we don't really understand ourselves, or more than that, we get caught into these traps that average people, Jared will tell you here a bit more maybe about that in a minute if we have enough time, but people that I call average people. We're not average people. We don't want to get caught into this trap that average people do, where we listen to others and we pretty much don't take action. So what we're going to do and hope to accomplish with this is every single week talk about some of the most common problems that not only entrepreneurs face, but just everyone in general, and sort of kind of really dissect them and then give some actionable content that you can take away that will help you not only in your life, but in your business. And in turn, that's going to make you a heck of a lot more money, because not only are you going to become more happier with your life, but with your production, your overall production. And then finally, you won't be listening to all that outside background noise for the people that tell you that you can't do this. At the end of the day, we are all human, and we all come onto this earth with very similar skill sets. It's just a matter of fine-tuning those skill sets and realizing our full potential. So without further ado, I introduce you guys to the man, the myth, and the legend. How are you, Jared?
Yeah, I was doing great. Thanks for the intro, and yeah, I'm happy to be here sharing with all of you a lot of the things that I've learned over my lifetime, both as a mental game coach, but also as an entrepreneur. I mean, a lot of the things you were talking about also apply to me with my business, and I've been now running a successful business for 11 years. So I've been through many ups and downs, twists and turns. I mean, the fact that you and I met in poker, is a perfect example of, I think, my entrepreneurial spirit and, my ability to just kind of adapt and find ways to be successful regardless of what that actually looks like. Because I can tell you right now, 16, 17 years ago, when I was set down this path, there was absolutely no chance in the world that I would believe that I would have written 2 best-selling poker books. So, I mean, but the bottom line is, poker just happened to be a great venue for me to bring, my message out. And now I'm kind of broadening back out. I started in golf, worked into poker, now working with entrepreneurs. I'm in Chicago once a month now, working with a very large institutional trading firm, working with, and I think like 35 of their traders. So, my business is continuing to kind of expand and grow, and having an opportunity to work with entrepreneurs is a great expansion of that, and I'm excited for it.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned before, for people that don't actually know who you are, you used to be a golfer, and then you got into sports psychology, and you kind of learned all the back end of that, but you kind of created your own system, and you helped a lot of, not in addition to athletes, also business people, now traders, and high-level poker players, which, as we both know, are the best of the best in terms of mental aptitude, I'll call it. Also, yeah. They're all just crazy ass mofos.
Yeah. But entrepreneurs are gamblers too. I mean, that's what's the difference between a gambler, a risk taker? I mean, it's all the same kind of stuff. So I started in golf. I wanted to play professional golf. Turned out that my mental game back in the day. This is now like close to 20 years ago now. I was just choking under major pressure. So, the US Open is coming up in 2 weeks. And back in 1997, I tried to qualify for the US Open and missed qualifying to the second round. There's 2 rounds of qualifying. I missed qualifying by 1 shot, and 4 times I 3-putted and just missed some super easy putts that I know were basically all because of pressure. I mean, I just flat out choked. And it was the first time that I'd ever really choked like that before in my, tournament career. And so I really kind of dove in to sports psychology. A friend of mine had mentioned that as being, an avenue that I should be looking at, and just learned as much as I could. And my game definitely flourished. This was my freshman year of college when, I'm talking about. So over the next couple of years, I ended up becoming a 3-time All-American in college. I won 9 collegiate events. So I was playing really well. But in those like major events, like a U.S. Open qualifier, I continued to choke. So it was sort of at that point that I realized like going down the path to becoming a professional golfer was just not like kind of in the cards for me at that time. I needed to solve this problem. A lot of my friends and family were saying, you're good enough. You just got to go out and try it. And, I was like, I'm not going to just go try something I don't think I can be successful at. I need to believe deep down that I can do it. And so what I decided to do was, what I decided to do was like dive into sports psychology to see if I could find better answers, because there was clearly value there, but it wasn't solving my problem at the root of it. Like I was getting better, but I wasn't getting to the core of the issue. And so what ended up happening was I got a 2-year degree in counseling psychology, spent 2 years getting licensed. I literally spent 4 years not doing what I wanted to be doing, which was coaching people on the mental game or improving my own mental game. And I did that to get trained as a licensed therapist. I was working with families and kids with some major mental issues, all because I wanted to understand how to solve psychological issues at a deeper level, which is what I believed was the ultimate failing of sports psychology at the time. And to a degree, it still is. So in the years subsequent to that, I've basically kind of melded sports psychology and therapy to develop what I call more like of a performance psychology kind of hybrid, where I'm able to deal with deeper issues without getting into the personal stuff, right? The personal stuff I don't necessarily care about. I care about issues that affect performance, like high expectations, like fears of failure, like dealing with doubt and uncertainty, like going through those swings in confidence, when things are going well and things are going poorly, sort of an overly results-oriented mindset. So there are a lot of themes like that I can deal with, which are much more effective and much more powerful, which is exactly what I did for you and a lot of my clients now. And frankly, I solved my own golfing issues. I turned professional for a short period of time, just before my poker opportunity came about. But I've now basically taken that initial training and brought it to a level that I always believed that I could, and it sure is fun to be able to have it actualized.
Right. You mentioned a bunch of different ways that we actually are doubts. You mentioned doubt, fear, and a lot of other things that entrepreneurs usually face. Same thing with like what poker players face and just everyone in general. Maybe we can start there, especially talking about doubt and fear, which I think is a huge one. Most certainly when it comes to making decisions. I know in poker, it's a problem for players to either decide to make a bet, call the bet, raise the bet, or fold. But it's the same thing in business. People usually are afraid to take action on certain things, and they're not sure whether to go forward and take action with it and or wait for a better place to put their money in. So I guess we could start there, Jared, since we really don't have anything else, and that's one of the problems that I see there. The only other one that I think might sound more attractive to you, which I know a lot of people watching here will probably have had this particular issue, is shiny object syndrome. And I don't know if this is that much a problem in poker, since I haven't played poker in quite a while, but I can tell you that the majority of people that I know that aren't making money online, they seem to jump from course to course or a different type of way to make money. They keep changing what they want to do. They can't decide what to take action on, and they wind up being like a deer in headlights, and therefore they never take action on anything, but just continue to buy things thinking this next thing is the holy grail, and this is what's going to make me money. So you pick the topic. I'll let it be up to you this time, but hopefully by next time we have some people that are asking some questions. And again, like I said, nobody even needs to ask questions. You and I can break this down and talk about it all day long because it's fascinating to me. You know how much I love to work on my poker game and really dive deep into it. And you as well, you like to do the same thing. So I'll let it this time since this is your first ever Google Hangout. You've done them before, but this is your first ever one live here on my page.
Sure.
So I'll let you pick which topic you want to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we could talk about this literally for hours, and we don't need questions because I know what the problems are that are out there, right? Poker players, golfers, day traders, entrepreneurs, you're all struggling with the same kinds of things because at the end of the day, you're all people, and these kind of issues are things that I see every single day in my life. Whether I want to or sometimes or not, out at a bar hanging out, and overhearing conversation, and I'm like, wow, you're just a massive, life fish and not really understanding, how you're actually producing success, or you don't even realize how lucky you got in certain situations. So yeah, let's talk about doubt and uncertainty first and foremost, because I think, when you were mentioning earlier, just that, like, one of the things that I helped you with was helping you to, in essence, like kind of get out of your own way, to unlock the thing that was holding you back. And, we're not going to get into your issues, but for a lot of people, doubt and uncertainty is that thing that's holding you back. And so if you're not really dealing with the doubt and uncertainty, what you end up what some people end up doing is they get into that shiny object syndrome. They just start grasping at straws, looking at the thing that is going to solve their problem magically. And success in anything ought not to be magic. I mean, if you get something that works instantaneously, you either got lucky or you were ready. Short of that, the odds are that the thing is not going to stick around that long. And so you think about like the lottery winner's mindset, right? Lottery winners, 80% of them are broke within 3 to 5 years. NBA players, NFL players, athletes who, in essence, sort of like kind of magically just get a ton of money at once. The statistics hold up. So if you're looking for that like magic that's going to suddenly take your business from making, $20,000 to $30,000 a year to making millions of dollars a year, well, guess what? You're going to run into the same kind of risks that a lot of people run into at that point, which is you don't know how to handle it. You don't know how to run $1 million business. You don't know how to manage millions of dollars worth of finances, both personally and, there's a lot to manage. And there's a lot of reasons why people go broke. There's a great ESPN 30 for 30. You don't even have to be a sports fan to watch it, but just go Google it. The whole thing is online. So I think on YouTube, it's an hour and a half. It'll be one of the best 90 minutes you spend in your life, if that like desire for instant success is a problem for you. So what people end up doing is they're looking for instant magical success as a way of dealing with the real uncertainty and doubt that exists in business or in anything that you're trying to do in life. And the reality is you need to get better at doing and dealing with that, right? You don't want to take the uncertainty and the doubt out of business, because if you do that, guess what? You might as well buy a freaking treasury bond. The most zero risk asset that exists in the world right now pays, for lack of a better word, fucking nothing. Okay. You're not going to make a dime on treasury bonds. So if you want to, have a zero risk investment, then buy that and enjoy your massive returns, right? Otherwise, if you're in business, there's risk, because if there's no risk, there's no reward, there's no return. So by seeking this sort of magical, fantasy amount of money instantly, or, a system that's going to magically produce it, you are basically trying to take the risk out of business. And in which case, you might as well just buy a treasury bond.
Right. So you mentioned a 30 for 30 with ESPN. What's the name of that? I don't think you mentioned the name of that, but
yeah, it's the film is called Broke. Right. And it's aptly titled because it references athletes who have made hundreds of millions of dollars and are flat broke. Right. Mike Tyson, Kurt Schilling, pick the sport. There are athletes that have gone broke. John Daly in golf. Guy won well over $50 million. Gone. I mean, now he can still make money because, he's a big name and he's a big draw. The same with Mike Tyson, the same with Kurt Schilling. But, a lot of you don't have that media exposure to be able to make, a lot of money back after you lose it. So, how many times are you going to make $1 million and then be able to lose it and then rebuild it again? If it's magical, if it's rubbing some system and thinking it's a genie going to grant you $1 million, how many times are you going to be able to go to that well? It's not going to be that often.
Right. So let's talk about, though, on the other side of that, let's talk about systems, and maybe not magic pill systems, but getting coaching. What is your thoughts on getting coaching, and how critical is it? I know I told you this at one point in the when I had my poker career going, is that I had spent tens of thousands of dollars on coaching, probably even up in the $100,000 range on getting coached for poker. And I told you that at some point I made the realization that a lot of the coaching people that I had used hadn't really taught me as much as just listening to the things that you and I would talk about. So what are your thoughts on coaching and getting the right coaching information to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's happening in the marketplace as a whole is that psychology is becoming something that is taking more of the forefront. And that's not to say that the psychology or the mental game becomes more important than the nuances of running a business and understanding the details of, like what it means to be a great golfer, a great day trader, a great poker player, a great business person. There are skills that you need to have at running a business that no mental game advice can ever sort of replace. So you have to, on one hand, look at, that education, whether it comes through coaching or systems or books or resources, as you kind of getting a degree. Depending on, your level of sort of traditional education. I mean, if you've got a bachelor's degree, and you majored in business, you've taken a lot of courses, you've got some idea of what it takes to run a successful business. But at the end of the day, you've got to actually put your money where your mouth is. You got to do it, and you got to have that real world training. So in that process, does some of these systems that are out there, does some, business coaching help? I'm sure that it does. But what you have to be looking out for, and I think this is what's shifting in the marketplace, is that business people are starting to treat their career like athletes have done, like poker players have done, like you did, Liz, in hiring mental game coaches or diving into their own psychological weaknesses, because they realize that there is no amount of like tactical knowledge, right? Golfer, day trader, poker player, business person, you have tactical knowledge. There's no amount of tactical knowledge that can correct fundamental mental game weaknesses. You have to be targeting those as well. And so this is not just a plug for my services. And I'm not saying like all of you should like instantly start working with me, although some of you probably need to. But what I'm saying is that you at least need to begin to address your mental game weaknesses, understand what they are, and first and foremost, and then start to work on them. I mean, because you have to see that that's the stuff that's holding you back. The way that I relate the mental game, because there's like statistics out there that people say like, a common one in golf is 90% mental. That is such horseshit. If golf were 90% mental, the Dalai Lama would be an amazing golfer, right? I mean, who is more mentally sound than him? And he's not. There's no mystical amount of mental powers that can make him or anybody to be a great golfer unless you have the physical acumen and training. You spend hours putting that in. Where the mental game comes in is in, as you described earlier, Liz, in allowing your abilities to flourish, right? And so the way that I think about the mental game is kind of like the oil in an engine. If your oil is just like crap, it's like sludge, or there's not a lot of it, there's a ton of friction, and the wheels are not going to be operating as optimally as possible. And all of us have had that experience where, we're just sort of paralyzed with fear. We're overcome with rage. We've just been shocked because somebody just called us out and made us feel like a fool. Frankly, it happened to me last night playing some tennis. I mean, I'm not immune to this. I'm not professing, that I don't have mental game weaknesses. What I'm professing is that I've got a shit ton of knowledge and I'm working on my weaknesses constantly. So when you have a greater idea of what that friction is, then all of a sudden things start to become more optimized. You're able to utilize more of that knowledge that you're picking up on from those systems and not just gathering more and more information, which actually perpetuates the problem. If you're somebody who's read 7 business books in the last month, there is no way that you can possibly apply what you've learned from those books to your day-to-day life trying to create a business. At best, maybe you can apply, the content from one book. or you pick out one tip from that book and you really try to apply it. Because anything that is going to be, fundamental to your career is going to be relatively big. And in order to apply it on a regular basis and really make it work for you, you've got to stick with it. It's not a perfect analogy because I'm not sure that there are perfect analogies quite yet from my current understanding of all the nuances that entrepreneurs go through. But I'll give you an example that I think will hit home. Tiger Woods back in 2003, 2004 went through his second major swing change. We're talking about fundamentally altering the movement patterns with which he swings the golf club. Now, he was able to pick up some of those nuances very, very quickly. But what he told everybody, and this is public, I've been searching for the YouTube video, but I think it was like kind of pre-YouTube popularity, so I don't know where the interview is, but he told reporters that it took him 2 full years to be able to compete in major championships, right, under the biggest amount of stress and pressure, and be able to use that new swing without having to think about it. And just think about that. I mean, the guy changed his golf swing, and within probably 4 or 5 months was able to do it reliably on the driving range where there was no pressure, was able to bring it out to the golf course, maybe a couple months after that, and be able to do it repeatedly, bring it out to PGA Tour events, probably had to think through it, bring it out to major championships, had to continue to think about it. It took him 2 full years to get to the point where it was automatic, like the back of his freaking hand. And guess what? He went on another run and won like 3 or 4 majors in a couple years. So the point is that when we're talking about acquiring new information, people have the tendency to just consume. And all that does is actually create greater confusion. Because now when you're faced with a stressful situation, your brain has shrunk. You literally have less capacity in that moment to think. Because that thinking part of your brain, it's limited. There's a lot of research on this. AT&T did the research back in the 1930s when they were doing research on how to come up with how many numbers for a phone number. And what they found was between 5 and 9 pieces of information was something that people could hold in their mind at one time. Now, that was under ideal circumstances. If you add pressure to that, all of a sudden it shrinks. So now all of a sudden you've got all this information that you've picked up from these resources and zero brain capacity to actually think through it. And all of you can relate to this. Those moments where you're under stress and you're trying to think and you kind of have a sense of it, but you end up going against your gut and you're not really sure, you confuse yourself, you overthink it, you doubt your gut, you go against what you should do. You're doing that because you have too much stuff in your head and you don't yet understand how to deal with the pressure. That's it. And we're dealing with brain capacity, neurological realities that you have to play by. So if you seek mastery, if you seek competence with new information, rather than just this constant consumption, then you give your brain the ability to actually flourish under moments of stress. You can make better decisions, and ultimately you're going to have better outcomes and be more successful.
Right. That kind of reminds me what I did today. Like, I didn't know how to set half this up, but I said, the hell with it. I kind of know enough to take some action, and then later on go back and, like, as we used to work on back in the poker days, analyze what I'd done, see what mistakes I made, and then figure out how to make it better for the next time. So obviously it's a learning process, and I think that's kind of what you're trying to communicate to everyone. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, exactly. And, I mean, that idea of just trying stuff out and not worrying so much about, getting it perfect from the start. I mean, it's impossible to get it perfect from the start. I mean, that's just a functional reality. I mean, like last week, I threw together, 2 weeks ago, I threw together a webinar that I ended up doing last week, and it was a paid thing. I mean, I couldn't it couldn't be crap, but I was working right up until the end, just finalizing the PowerPoint. As it turned, I hadn't used the webinar software before. As it turns out, one guy, wasn't able to get in because he was calling in on his phone, and the software just, I don't know, I don't fully get it. But, at the end of the day, I knew that it was my time. If I had to refund people, if I made no money from it, then fine, right? Then I gained a lot of information that was going to help me the next time around. So, I have learned to just try stuff. I mean, back in 2005, right after I got my license as a therapist, I literally quit my job and flew to Arizona like a week before I moved there to find a place to live where I knew nobody. I had the name of one person who was like a friend of a friend, and started to create a business. And yeah, in retrospect, I was overconfident as hell, thinking that I was going to be, immediately successful. But, I had a deep belief that no matter what, I was going to figure it out. And I think, for people who don't have that more naturally, you can find it, right? But at the end of the day, you got to understand what is blocking your ability to do that, to just let you just try stuff and fail. Maybe it's a fear of mistakes or a fear of failure. If that's what it is, then you've got to work through it. You can't just keep learning new stuff as a way to mask that problem.
Right, and I know for me, for one, I know that you'll remember this. I used to hate the fact that I was going to make mistakes. It would piss the hell out of me on tilt because I made a mistake. I would completely lose it and wind up going on tilt, losing all my money. And for those people that don't know what tilt is, it's the point of like, you're just so upset and frustrated that you just say the hell with this, and you throw all your money in the middle of the table and say the hell with it, I'm going to go all in. And it really truly happens, and not just in poker, but in real life. But for me, it was the fear of mistakes. One of the things that I've commonly heard, Jared, and I've been speaking in a lot of different places, on the road a lot, one of the most common things that I hear people are afraid of is they'll always tell me this. And I'd like to hear your input on it, and then I'm going to let everybody know my input on it. We got like 10 more minutes left, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
But typically, people are stopped and they're afraid to take action because somebody in their family or somebody like their wife, their husband, or somebody very close to them is telling them, there's something super special about Jared or Liz. They've got a special skill which enables them to be able to make money and have a successful business, but they doubt themselves, or they doubt they can do it because somebody close to them tells them they can't. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's rough. I mean, it would be awesome if you had people who were supportive of you. But I can promise you this: if you've got people who are supportive of you, sometimes there are people who are taking risks that shouldn't be taking those risks. Like, they're in essence overconfident. So, doubt is not a problem. What you want to do, I think, is to look at that in two ways. One is you want to look at it from their perspective. Try to really understand why it is that they're doubtful of your ability to be successful. And I would bet that 9 times out of 10, it's because of their own insecurities. It's because of their own mental game issues, because their own shit that they're just piling on top of you. And 1 time out of 10, maybe it's more than that, I don't know this audience, 1 time out of 10, their doubt is legitimate, and you probably ought to be reconsidering what you're doing. And that doubt doesn't mean that you don't do it. It just means that you have to be a little bit more thoughtful about really understanding how you're going to do it and how you're going to become successful. So that's one side. And then the other side is, look, doubt from other people can be fuel, right? And I think a lot of people sometimes say, oh, I'm going to prove them wrong, F them, whatever, right? And I think that motivation kind of comes from the wrong place. And I think the more that you can try to understand it from their perspective, the better able you are to say, okay, well, I hear you, I understand you, and I understand where you're coming from, and here's the decision that I'm making for my own self. I'm taking responsibility for what it is that I want to achieve in my life because it is mine, right? And you take responsibility for that and you figure it out. I mean, the problem is there is no roadmap for like tried and tested entrepreneurial success that is as simple as like becoming a doctor, right? Or becoming a lawyer. These are proven professions that are accredited, and there's a roadmap for it from the time that you begin college. The question just becomes, being able to be successful in it. But being an entrepreneur, I mean, the world is constantly changing. There's huge shifts all the time, so you have to become really adaptive. I think it's way harder. But when you can be, when you take responsibility for your success and you say, I'm going to figure it out and keep figuring it out, you learn an essential element that an entrepreneur needs, because being able to deal with uncertainty is something that a lot of people can't tolerate, which is why they seek out more tried and tested professions like becoming a doctor or a lawyer.
Right, and as you said a mouthful. It's kind of scary sometimes being an entrepreneur because pretty much what you accomplish is all in your own hands. So a lot of times you don't have that roadmap, and it's a very scary thing. A lot of your family, a lot of the times that they doubt you, or it's not necessarily that they doubt you, they just don't want you to make a mistake and not have any money. At the end of the day, it comes down to that. But that's a lot better advice than what I typically tell people, Jared. I actually tell people, who told you this? And they might say, oh, it's my cousin Jimmy, my cousin, I'll say, really, what does Jimmy do? And they'll usually say, oh, he drives for UPS. And then I ask them, does Jimmy by any chance at UPS manage a multi-million-dollar business? If not, don't pay attention. He's a crazy mofo. So certainly a lot.
You were close.
Certainly a lot better advice than what I typically tell people. But
that's why they pay me for it.
Yeah, that's what they're paying you for. Obviously, me, when somebody asks me that, as I said before, I always ask them, what exactly does your cousin do? Do you want to listen to him or do you want to listen to me? So yeah. I obviously try not to lead people in the wrong direction. I try to tell them the way I achieve success. It's very simple. It's not complicated. I'm very simple-minded. You can ask Jared. I don't try to complicate things. So I try to share with everyone as much as I can. So we've only got about 4 more minutes. Before we leave, I just wanted to remind everybody, we are live with Jared Tendler. If you want to learn more about Jared's coaching, visit jaredtendler.com. Is that the best website they can actually reach you, Jared?
Yeah, they can. I mean, that's sort of my general website. I've got more information on jaredtendlerpoker.com, but it's obviously very poker heavy. But yeah, there's a ton of information on jaredtendler.com as well. You know, at Jared Tendler is my Twitter handle. Yeah, that's probably the best way to find me.
Awesome. As I said before, we're going to try to do this every single week. We've got 30 minutes scheduled a week. But we've got to value Jared's time. He's super busy. He's working with a lot of successful poker players, athletes, and business people, now trainers as well. So if you want to hit him up for more information, do so. If you want to ask some questions, just post them below this thread here in the Facebook group, below this video, and I'll get my assistant on it to write them down for next time. I still had a lot of questions, but like I said, the 30 minutes flew right by.
It goes quick.
Yeah, it goes really fast. Anybody, if you guys are SEOs, if you're entrepreneurs, if you're Amazon sellers, ask your questions. If there's a particular question, a problem that you're having trouble with, ask them, and we will definitely get to them. Again, like I said, we only got 30 minutes on these, but they're going to certainly be fun, and you guys better be ready to learn a lot. These are the very same techniques that I use to supercharge myself, and Jared can tell you, I quite an impressive job. I was a nutcase at one point, and now I'm still a nutcase, but I'm a nutcase that understands that I'm a nutcase, and I know exactly what I have to do in order to fix my problems.
You're a nutcase not getting in your own way.
Yes, I'm a nutcase not getting in my own way, a nutcase that loves to make money. To me, it's fun, and making mistakes, getting out there and putting yourself on the line sometimes is really fun for me. Learning about yourself is possibly the most rewarding thing that you can do because, again, the most underrated tool that you can work on is the business mindset. Most people ignore that and they focus on everything else, but just having the right mindset can truly mean a huge difference in your bottom line. So it can take you from literally whatever you're making now to well over 7 figures per year if you have the right mindset. So thank you again, Jared, for joining us. So we'll see you next week, and thanks again, everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. It was fun.
Awesome. Thank you, Jared. Have a great day.
Thanks, Liz. You too. See you, everyone.